The Chinese Communist Party's zero COVID and lockdown measures have left people in misery, and more people want to flee China. Recently, the study of Run, which is phonetically similar to the English word run, is on the rise in Chinese society. But a new regulation recently issued by China's National Immigration Administration has dashed many people's hopes of escaping. The government agency issued a statement on May 12th that it would strictly regulate Chinese citizens from leaving the country unnecessarily for reasons of epidemic prevention. The internet has also been abuzz with rumors that Chinese airport and border security have been harshly interrogating Chinese citizens leaving the country and advising them to return, as long as the border security officers think the passengers are making travels that are not necessary or simply visiting relatives. Some Chinese travelers have also had their passports or green cards cut at Chinese customs. This rumor has caused panic to the Chinese people who are preparing to run, and netizens exclaim that the shutdown has really begun. Chinese Immigration Administration also issued an article on the 12th to refute the rumors, saying that the recent rumors about passport application suspension and banning people from leaving the country or cutting green cards are false news. However, according to the experience of netizens and what the Chinese government had done before, many people are still worried about the risk of having their passports destroyed when they leave the country, as rumors are often turned into reality after each rumor was refuted by the CCP. For example, on March 23rd, the Shanghai police opened a case against 2 people for spreading the rumor that Shanghai will soon be locked down, and repeatedly stated that it was just a rumor. But just 5 days later, the city was actually locked down, and the measures actually implemented were almost identical to the rumor. China Immigration Administration defines non-essential travel as vacationing abroad, visiting relatives, etc. For those who have a genuine need to leave the country, such as for studying, employment, and business, they must undergo strict verification, and can only be released after permission is granted according to the judgment of the officer on site. Netizens shared a screenshot on social media platforms, showing that the security unit at Shanghai's Pudong terminal ordered that anyone who shows hatred for the country or the CCP will not be allowed to leave the country, such as those with permanent residence cards of another country, large amounts of foreign currency or savings passbooks from other countries in their luggage, and anyone with malicious motives for leaving the country will have their documents destroyed on the spot to prevent any fish from escaping the net. Some Chinese citizens have also complained online that they and others have recently been questioned by customs officers and banned from leaving the country even though they have foreign green cards. A netizen reported that at 9 a.m. on the 8th, China Southern Airlines CZ-3082 landed at Guangzhou Airport, and everyone on board was questioned by border officers. They were asked in detail about the reasons for leaving the country, what they were doing abroad, why they were returning to China, and so on. Some people even had their passports cut on the spot. Another person complained that when he left the country with a Canadian study visa, the border officer still asked him what he was going to do in Canada and if there were any offline courses at his school. After the man answered that the course was currently online, his passport was immediately cut. On May 9th, a clip from a group chat was posted on the internet showing a mother with a U.S. green card accompanying her child, who has U.S. citizenship, leaving from Guangzhou. The mother's green card was forcibly destroyed by customs officers, and they were prohibited from leaving. On the same day, a Weibo user revealed that the renewal of passports has been paused at her location, so it is expected she will not be able to travel abroad in the near future. Another Weibo user who lives in Beijing said that his assistant went to renew his passport on the 7th, and he had made an appointment, but when he arrived, he was not allowed to do so, and no specific reason was given. Someone's comment revealed that on the social media platform Little Red Book, he saw many people being persuaded to return at the airport. Nowadays, people holding most of the tourist and business visas are not allowed to leave the country, and only those with study visas are allowed. Some people are also concluded that now people without a passport are not allowed to apply for a passport, and even if you have a visa, you're advised not to leave. On May 10th, one person broke the news on a social media platform that China customs are crazily cutting passports. The video shows a man who has already been to Japan telling that he personally saw the border inspector cut more than 20 passports at a port in Dalian City. He said that out of a group of more than 300 people, only 3 people have left the country since March 25th.
我见着了被检护照的老多了。我们那个就是其他那些日前群里的，还有包括我们几个小团体的，从各地走的，都听说过检护照的事儿。
We cannot verify the authenticity of the above information, but since there are multiple news circulating, it should not be just an unfounded rumor. In fact, it has been rumored earlier that the customs officers at the airport have been questioning Chinese people severely and even cutting off their passports on the spot. In particular, human rights lawyers, dissidents, and what the Chinese Communist Party sees as the so-called people who hate the party and their families are considered to be endangering national security if they leave the country. Therefore, many of them have had their passports cut at customs. In October 2017, independent journalist and author Zeng Zheng, whose 76-year-old mother was coming to the United States to visit her, and whom she had not seen in over 10 years, had her passport cut at Shanghai's Pudong Airport. An immigration agent also described the experience of his client whose passport was cut a few years ago. The client's husband had been imprisoned for alleged subversion of state power and could not leave the country. Her husband wanted her to leave the country, so she contacted this agent. She signed up for a labor program in a certain country. After all the paperwork was completed, she checked in at the airport, handed in her passport, and after scanning it, the border inspector said, "Don't you know you can't leave the country?" And then her passport was subsequently cut. Currently, a Google search on passport cutting shows a lot of information about Chinese people complaining about their passports being cut. The Chinese border officials have been cutting passports of Chinese people for many years, said Ms. Zhang, who often travels abroad for business. Since the COVID outbreak, it has become more difficult than ever for Chinese people to leave the country. Ms. Zhang states, "It's been 2 or 3 years since the passport cutting started. It has been 2 years now since the exit restrictions have been so tight. Whether Chinese passport holders are allowed to leave the country is dependent on the border security. Now there is no trace of the administration, no relevant documents issued about the criteria or eligibility. The principle of border control is that all Chinese passport holders are asked very detailed questions and asked to provide a lot of documents, which is indeed a much stricter process." In addition, China has also tightened the restrictions on elementary and secondary school students to study abroad. Some Chinese study abroad agents have revealed that the government has stopped issuing passports for elementary and secondary school students to go abroad. Ms. Huang, a Guangzhou-based agent who has been working with Chinese students studying abroad for a long time, said, "The government has already said that people who do not need to leave the country should not leave. Those who are too young are now not allowed to be sent abroad to study." Ms. Huang also said that previously, some children could go to Thailand and the United Kingdom to study in secondary schools, but now the government is beginning to restrict that, and they can only go abroad to study in universities. Because the children who go outside to learn Western cultural values after returning home, the government would definitely think they cannot control them easily anymore. The more the students see abroad, the more ideas they have. The government certainly doesn't need you to have a lot of knowledge. A netizen who wanted to take her 5-year-old child to the US to study said that her child's passport had expired and that she was refused by the relevant authorities when she renewed her child's passport. The reason was that her child was too young and it is too early to go abroad to receive foreign education. In addition, last August, the CCP's Shanghai Municipal Education Committee issued a notice on the curriculum plan for the 2021 school year, explicitly ordering that Xi Jinping ideology be included as a compulsory subject in elementary and secondary schools. At the same time, Shanghai elementary schools dropped their English exams. This, coupled with the sudden removal of Duolingo, China's leading English learning app, from its mobile app platform, has led to an association between the teaching of English and Xi Jinping's ideology in China. This move has been cited as a prelude to the CCP's lockdown of the country. Recently, Renmin University of China, Nanjing University, and Lanzhou University announced that they would not participate in the World University Rankings, triggering ridicule from netizens. But some analysts say that the actions of these three universities are cause for alarm, as they may be the first step towards cultural decoupling. The Chinese political cartoonist Rebel Pepper even linked the news to the Communist Party's suspension of passport renewals, saying, "One thing after another has gone from impossible to reality." You guys always like to talk about a big chess game, about looking at the whole picture. Yes, they are playing a clear game of chess one step after another, and the whole game is moving toward a big uncoupling, a big lockdown. The window of time has closed, and now it's impossible to get out even if you want to. After the Chinese National Immigration Administration ordered severe restrictions on non-essential travels for Chinese citizens, there are further signs that China is also gradually cutting off communications between its citizens and foreign countries. The lockdown is expanding. China's technology portal IT Home has released a screenshot that shows that China Mobile Zhejiang has recently sent a message to its users, announcing that it will turn off the function of receiving overseas calls by default, according to the requirements of its superiors, citing the frequent occurrence of overseas phone scams. Users have to send a specific SMS to confirm registration before May 20th, otherwise the function of receiving overseas calls will be turned off. The Chinese media Lan Jing'er on May 13th quoted the person in charge of China Mobile Zhejiang and confirmed that this is indeed the case. For the time being, Unicom, China Telecom, and other Chinese phone carriers have not yet announced whether they will follow suit. Recently, China's three largest telecom carriers have tacitly shut down their services for receiving overseas SMS messages at the request of local governments in Hebei, Henan, and Jiangxi province. In early May, Bloomberg also cited sources as saying that the CCP had asked government agencies, state-owned enterprises, and institutions to replace foreign-brand computers with domestic equipment, and that as many as 50 million computers will be replaced. The replacement of operating systems, office software, and other software is also involved. The sudden replacement of work systems will certainly cause a reduction in office efficiency, delay loans, project approval, and other work, which is certainly not good for the economy. So why is the CCP doing this? Some analysts believe that this is also a sign of decoupling with the West. The Chinese government not only strictly controls Chinese citizens going abroad, but also strictly controls overseas investment. Recently, a government document was circulated on the internet stating that starting from May 1st, the business of notary publics for foreign investments will be completely suspended. Foreign medias have verified that the CCP has indeed tightened its rules on investment immigration. The Australian Financial Review earlier quoted Sun Li-mei, a Beijing-based immigration agent, as saying, "This means that it will be more difficult to obtain notarization and complete the immigration process. Even with a lot of capital, it's not easy to distribute wealth overseas and transfer it to other countries." Lai Jianping, who currently resides in Canada and holds a master's degree in international law from China University of Political Science and Law, analyzed the purpose of the CCP's progressive closure of the country and tighter control over people leaving the country. First, to tighten personal control over Chinese citizens, to tie all Chinese people firmly to its chariot, and to not allow Chinese citizens to escape from the mainland. It also does not allow Chinese citizens to go abroad for a walk or have a look. Secondly, it wants to reduce Chinese people's contact with the outside world and the West. Because when a Chinese person leaves the country, he will compare what is different between China and the West. He will accept the new things and views of the West. In order to better control and indoctrinate the Chinese people, the CCP will try its best to control Chinese citizens' minds. They are reluctant to allow Chinese citizens to leave the country. Third, its economy is now very depressed and deteriorating. It wants to strengthen its foreign exchange management control. If Chinese people go abroad to travel, study, or visit friends and relatives, they will spend a lot of foreign exchange, and in order to retain these very limited foreign exchange, it is not willing to let Chinese citizens go abroad. In addition, since Shanghai was locked down for epidemic prevention, there has been much chaos and public discontent. Recently, the number of internet searches for immigration has increased dozens of times. Lai Jinping said this also shows that many Chinese people are in an unprecedented state of despair with this government. They want to vote with their feet and leave as soon as they can. As we have analyzed before, with the current practices of the Chinese Communist Party, including the establishment of a unified domestic market, tightening passport processing, tightening border control, and lowering the status of English education in primary and secondary education, it is an inevitable trend for China to go into seclusion and disconnect from the world.